Assalamu alaikum. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the success of Umar Al-Khattab, and I'm going to be talking about the success in which he's developed over the span of 10 years. He was able to have 8 provinces, and he was able to establish departments in military, education, social services, and this was all fueled by a revenue system in which strengthened at the time of Umar. It started at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and as it got to Umar, there was a whole revenue system that was just really particular in terms of its recording, where it was going, and it was a really good infrastructure. Now, if you were to look at the time of Umar, you can see it as a true social welfare state. Like, subhanallah, this is the true essence of what a social welfare system is supposed to look like. We try to mimic it, but it can never be like Umar and what he was able to establish in his time. Like, in research, I looked and compared empires and societies, and you can really see that this is really something that you're never going to see again as history unfolds itself. To analyze a little bit of the British Empire, because this is something that really was shaping the way that our society had gone from the point of the British. So what the British did was they went to places stealing resources that they were fueled by profit, and you can see how they wanted to rule all these areas for their own good, from a business standpoint. And their governors that were taking over these areas, they were getting built-in privileges already from a standpoint of injustice. That's how they ran their system, and that's how they grew so fast. When you look at the British Empire, it's really scary, and subhanAllah, this is the trajectory of our society, unfortunately, from the 16th century onward. When we're looking at Umar's time, you can look at this concept of king versus Khalifa, and this is where it all kind of stands up to be at the end of the day, because Umar, he never considered himself to be a higher than his people. Problem when it comes to the trajectory of how our society ended up going is because there was no morality, lack of morality, and then there was this sense of entitlement when you're in a position. There was an instance in which Umar, he had stopped by Salman al-Farsi. So Umar asked, am I a king or am I a Khalifa? And Salman said, verily, if you take a coin from your land of the Muslims, more or less, and place it where it does not belong, you are a king and not a Khalifa. And then when Umar heard this, he wept. So this is a stance that we can reflect on, is that there is a difference and there is a trajectory if you take the position of a king, where your land will go. So let's get into the character of Umar. So his character was defined by justice. Coming into Islam, during Islam, he was just, number one. Character traits of anybody who is a leader in a leader position. One of the things that you'll notice in true Muslim principled people is that they really fear Allah. They talk to Allah directly. They stand in front of Allah. They want to be standing at the end in the day of judgment, standing in front of Allah and making sure that they were the most just, that they used and utilized all their blessings for His sake. They want to have this ultimate pleasure from Allah, and this was definitely the case with Umar. He really was very heightened by his actions. He would constantly be asking for forgiveness. He really wanted his standing with Allah to be in the best possible manner. He was also somebody who was very involved, an active person. Physically, he was very active. He would be going in the marketplaces in the day. At night, he would be surveilling the areas. He was really, really an active person in every single way, and he was using both emotional intelligence. He was also using his physical strength in the best way, that he stopped a lot of secret injustices. Like, he heard people talking one day. He fixed laws based on interacting with people at night. It was just that he needed people's input to he needed to see a reflection of his work. He needed to be in contact with people. He had a shura. He had consultation with Muslims. Was not afraid to be in a position of just consult. He knew his position as a leader, but he wasn't afraid to connect. So one of the great things of this time, and this is really in depth that you can research, would be the revenue system. The revenue system, there was economic policies, there was an administration that was being done with the revenue system, and the two main traits of this revenue system was it was strong and transparent. Transparent is one of the things, is again very tied to the golden age. When you pass the society at large now, this is not happening. And something that I mentioned here was the admin. There was admin at this time where there was a documentation of where the money was going and leaving, and it was so structured. SubhanAllah, there is a whole website dedicated to financial literacy and conversation around the time of Umar that I will be putting down below to kind of go really in depth on the taxes and the categories of money. But at this time, it was recorded by elected people to really hone in on where money was going and coming. So what the Baytal Mal ultimately did was it supported to grow infrastructure, livestock, making people's to give them a standing ground, because as you can see, he also gave money to breastfeeding women, would get a certain fee. Children, there's child allowances. There were things that we have in our society in Canada today. I think we can go forever to talk about some of the other great things that he was able to establish, but honestly, guys, the emotional feeling that you will feel when you watch Umar Suleiman go into full depth about his leadership is that he really was weakened. He was not somebody, a lot of people do know him as a strong, macho guy, but he did go through a lot. He had holes in his clothes, he struggled a lot with finding food. He did not want to eat what the people could not eat, so he refrained from meat, from milk, from egg. He really did not want to be of any higher than, he didn't want anything to do with having access to things that people did not have access to. He had asked, his shura, he had asked, how much money am I entitled to keep my family and I going.
And he says to them, listen, what am I entitled to? Because I no longer have any earning coming to my house, so what am I entitled to from Baitul-Maal? I don't want to wrong anyone. So some of the Sahaba, they said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, you're entitled to a fine garment, you're entitled to all of your meals and your family's meals, you're entitled to a riding animal, and whatever you need to conduct your affairs, your armor, whatever you need to conduct your affairs as Amir al-Mu'mineen. Sa'id ibn Zayd, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, you eat and you feed others. That's what you're entitled to. Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu told them 2 meals. The Khalifa of the Muslims, you're entitled to 2 meals from Baitul Mal. Umar radiallahu anhu went with that opinion. And then he asked them, he said, well, what about his clothing? They said that you have a winter cloth and a summer cloth. So one for the winter, one for the summer, and an animal to take yourself to Hajj and to Umrah. And then your regular stipend that any Muslim receives from Baytal Mal. And Umar radiallahu anhu liked that because he said, I'm only one of the Muslims. This was
pleasing Allah so much, to console, to uplift. These are amounts, deeds that you are doing, but you are allowing Islam to pass forward. You're moving Islam forward, And that's why he was able to go through to 8 provinces, because when you trust this person that is doing so much for his people, it'll make you cry, to be honest, if you were to watch Umar's video. Oh yeah, but yeah, you will cry. There's no doubt about it. The emotions that this 10 years had taken me through, even like from, you know, the 21st century, it will really just make you ponder what you can do for the ummah and what was done for the ummah.